Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're digging into something really important, a behavioral framework called applied behavior analysis, or ABA. And we're looking at how its full structure can bring back some calm, some certainty, and independence for older adults dealing with, that cognitive fog. If you were supporting someone who gets caught in that loop of anxiety, the double checking, asking the same question over and over, needing constant reassurance, well, you know how draining it is. We saw this case study, Mrs. T, who was absolutely convinced her door was unlocked, like moments after she just checked it. And often we see that kind of thing as maybe a failure of memory or willpower. But the material we looked at suggests something else, something more constructive. That panic, that behavior, it's actually a signal that crucial environmental supports are, well, missing. The system they usually rely on isn't working for them anymore.
Exactly. And what's really interesting here is we're not necessarily trying to fix the memory itself. Often we can't. Instead, the idea is to design a predictable, reliable world around the person. And the solution comes from ABA, specifically applying the whole three-step framework consistently and, importantly, compassionately. That's antecedent, behavior, and consequence.
ABC.
Right, ABC. It might sound a bit academic, but really it boils down to predictability. A is the trigger, sets the stage. B is the action needed. C is what happens right after. When you get all three clear and managed, that feedback loop can shift. It moves from panic and doubt towards, well, a kind of quiet certainty.
Okay, let's unpack that structure, starting with A, the antecedent, the cue. So the antecedent is the prompt, the signal, the thing that happens right before the behavior.
Yeah.
And if that cue is fuzzy, or just not there, that internal doubt just rushes in, right? Like leaving the house, you can't quite picture, turning off the stove, bam, stress level spike.
That's it, exactly. That internal check, did I remember? Did I do it?
Yeah.
That's where the system breaks down with cognitive fog. So the goal of step one, the antecedent step, is to completely sidestep that internal doubt. You replace it with external, visible signals. It's really all about environmental design. Make it undeniable.
I really like the example they gave, installing a smart lock. But not just any smart lock, one with a big, bright green light, something you just can't miss. And that light clearly signals locked instantly. So the person doesn't have to dredge up the memory of turning the key.
Right.
They just look at the light. The light itself becomes the proof, the antecedent for I am safe.
And it's so effective because it cuts off the anxiety before it even really starts. You swap that vague internal question, did I actually lock it, for a solid physical external fact, green light's on, it's done. And this is really key for preserving dignity because the person is actively confirming their own safety, not being told they failed to remember something.
Okay, but I have to ask this because maybe some listeners are thinking it. Doesn't relying on a giant green light, doesn't that feel a bit infantilizing? How does that preserve dignity, like you said?
That's a really fair question. But the sources we looked at emphasize that dignity is preserved because the choice and the confirmation still rest with the adult. The tool, the light, is just offloading the cognitive burden of memory retrieval. The issue isn't intelligence, right? It's the reliability of recalling the action. By making the environment speak clearly, we actually give them back control and confidence to manage their safety without needing constant caregiver checks.
Okay, that makes sense. You're making the world user-friendly for a brain that just needs that external certainty. Less burden, more control. Okay, so we've got the clear cue, the green light. That's A. Now, step two, structuring the behavior itself. What is the actual action? The B is still too confusing or overwhelming.
Yeah, that's a common hurdle. This is where we use something called task analysis. Cognitive fog doesn't just impact memory recall. It can really fragment the sequence of steps needed for, even routine tasks. Getting dressed, making coffee. It can fall apart. So by structuring the behavior, breaking it down, we create a kind of fail-safe. It prevents that immediate sense of frustration and being overloaded.
And this is where it gets really interesting strategy-wise. They talked about backward chaining.
Ah, yes, backward chaining. It sort of flips the usual teaching method on its head. Instead of starting with step one, which might be the hardest or furthest from any kind of reward, you organize the steps so the person actually performs the final, most rewarding step first, or at least learns it first in the teaching process. Think about, say, a visual checklist for the morning routine, maybe laminated.
Okay, so if the goal is feeling clean and ready after a shower, maybe the last step on the list is drying off and feeling that comfort. So you teach that part first.
Exactly. Or ensure they successfully complete that last part with help initially. You teach the task essentially in reverse order. By successfully doing that final satisfying step, You immediately link that good feeling, that natural reward, to the whole sequence. It helps prevent getting bogged down in the early, maybe more complex steps like gathering clothes or figuring out water temperature because the payoff feels much closer. It reinforces completing the entire chain.
Huh. I feel like I could use that for assembling furniture. Start by putting the cushion on the finished chair, then figure out the legs. It makes you want to get to the end. Ensures you don't just give up halfway through confusing instructions.
It's the same principle, motivation and clarity.
All right, so we have A, the clear cue, like the green light. We have B, the manageable task, maybe structured with backward chaining. Now we need to make sure this new successful behavior actually sticks. That brings us to step 3, reinforcing the consequence.
C. The consequences, well, it's everything in terms of whether a behavior happens again. It's what immediately follows the action. And when cognitive reliability is shaky, that natural internal feeling of, hey, I did it, can fade really fast, or maybe it doesn't register strongly. So external positive reinforcement becomes absolutely crucial.
Okay.
We need to follow that successful independent behavior immediately with a positive consequence. And it needs to be specific and meaningful to that person. It could be simple social praise, wow, you handled that smoothly, or getting to do a preferred activity next, or even just explicitly acknowledging a moment of peace. This is how you rebuild that sense of self-efficacy, that I can do this feeling.
Let's go back to Mrs. T. She sees the green light and she puts her keys on the designated bright hook, B, a successful chain. What's the caregiver's role right then for C, the consequence?
Right. So the caregiver doesn't just, nod and move on. The source material was clear. The response needs to be immediate and specific. So the caregiver might say something like, that was smooth. You checked the lock, keys are hung up, you're all set, you can relax now.
Yeah.
The reward there is twofold. Confirming her competence, her action, and also explicitly linking it to the desired outcome, that feeling of calm and being able to rest easy.
Ah, so the calm itself, the sense of mastery, that's the reinforced consequence. It's not just a gold star. It's validating the independence and connecting it to peace of mind. Shifts the whole focus from anxiety to competence.
Precisely. It closes the loop positively.
So if we tie all 3 steps together now, A, B, C, we can really see how it creates this continuous loop of success that replaces that old draining loop of doubt and checking.
Yeah, let's trace it for Mrs. T leaving the house. She's about to go. She sees her visual checklist by the door. That's A, the antecedent. She calmly follows the simple steps on the list, checks the door, sees the green light confirm it's locked. That's B, the structured behavior. Then the consequence, C. She maybe ticks the final box on her list, feels that relief, puts her keys on the hook, and her caregiver immediately says, great job, all secure, looks like you're ready to go enjoy your walk. Genuine appreciation, confirmation of competence.
And that whole system, ideally, means the environment itself is doing the heavy lifting for guidance. It minimizes the need for the caregiver to be the constant human reminder, the prompter.
Which leads to this really profound reframing. We're not just dealing with someone forgetting things. We're actually addressing a fundamental breakdown in communication. A breakdown between the person and their environment, their world.
Wait, say that again? A breakdown in communication between the person and their world. So we're moving the caregiver role from constant manager to what, like an architect?
Exactly. Intentional design. That fundamentally changes the whole dynamic, the emotional temperature in the home.
Okay, fine.
It really does. The caregiver's role shifts completely. They're no longer the memory police, having to constantly remind, correct, coax, which is just exhausting and frankly pretty demoralizing for everyone.
Yeah.
Instead, the role becomes something much more empowering. They become an environmental architect, designing a compassionate, supportive world where success, where independence is sort of the default setting. And this does wonders for preserving the dignity of the older adult. But just as importantly, it conserves precious emotional energy that can then be used for real connection, for shared moments, instead of being burned up in conflict over tasks.
That's huge. Now, we should probably address one thing. A lot of people hear ABA and their mind immediately goes to, interventions for children, particularly with autism.
That's a very common misconception, yeah. But the principles of ABA, understanding how antecedents, behaviors, and consequences shape what we do, these are universal learning principles. They apply to all of us. In geriatric care, as this material really highlights, ABA tools are perfectly suited to create that needed predictability and structure. It helps seniors manage anxiety, maintain routines, feel capable, stay engaged. It's really just behavioral science applied with empathy and compassion.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what does this deep dive really mean for us?
Hmm.
We started with that really visceral stress of the double checking, that almost frantic need for confirmation. And we've landed on this structured but compassionate path towards restoring confidence, towards certainty.
Mm-hmm. And the sign that it's working, the measure of success, it's actually pretty simple at the end of the day. You'll see fewer repeated questions. You'll notice a visible shift, maybe subtle at first, towards calm, towards independence, both for the senior and for the caregiver. When the environment becomes reliable, that anxiety lifts.
That quiet confidence returning, that feels like the real goal here, the ultimate reward. So a final thought for you listening. If you are supporting someone dealing with cognitive fog, or honestly, even if you're just feeling overwhelmed by information yourself sometimes, try this. Take that ABC framework, Antecedent Behavior Consequence, and pinpoint maybe the single most critical, most stressful routine in your day or their day. Then ask yourself, okay, where's the weakest link right now? Is it the cue? A. Is that starting signal foggy, unclear, easily missed? Is it the task itself? B. Is it too complex, too many steps? Could it use some chaining? Or maybe is it the consequence? C. Is that positive reinforcement missing? Is there no immediate, meaningful acknowledgement of success? Focus your energy on strengthening just that one weakest link, one clear cue, one simple chain, one genuine moment of calm, one step at a time.